Good. Right, hello everyone. Welcome to our latest Tech Jumpstart meetup. Thanks for coming along, and thank you to my guests, Chris, Kat, Sophie, and Cal. Nice to meet you. Thank you for coming. So this Tech Jumpstart is going to be all about the different journeys into software development that one can take. These guys have all got their own journey that they're going to tell you about. The whole idea is to look at, like, that software development is an open place where people come in from all different angles and all different places and all different backgrounds. You don't have to take a computer science degree. You can teach yourself. You can go for a boot camp. You can do all sorts of different things. So we're going to look at that and just talk about the sort of skills and the sort of attributes that you should be sort of looking at to pick up to get yourself into that career. Just before I go on, Steve, did you want to do the Silicon Brighton thing? Okay. So yeah, this event is being live streamed. So if you don't wish to be included in the photographs or video, please speak to us. And when we come to the table bit, one of the tables is being live streamed. Just avoid that table, and you should be okay. Maya?
Never spoken through a microphone before. So yeah, welcome to Freedom Works. So just a quick intro to who we are. So we're a co-working space, offer flexible kind of packages, so hot desking, meeting rooms, then to more permanent space like office spaces as well. But we're a little bit more than that. So we really try and offer flexibility and like the opportunity to collaborate as well. So through having flexible packages, but also through hosting events like this one, and then offering like our members opportunity to get free business support and doing community lunches and things like that. So yeah, just like that's a bit what we're about. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'll just introduce Steve from Silicon Brighton, who's going to tell you all about what they do.
Cheers, Dan. Hi, everyone. Great to be here tonight. So I'm one of the founders of Silicon Brighton. So I'm here with my colleague Cam on the deck, and yeah, I'll give you all a bit of an intro to us if you haven't heard of us before. So we like to see ourselves as the host of Brighton and Hove's tech sector. We support, it's just tipped over 30 meetup groups now across the city, covering all sort of tech verticals and horizontals. So lots of, technology specific events there, and lots of sort of subject matter specific events as well. All of our events are free to join, and we like to make sure they cover the full breadth of experience. So no matter what level you are, there's something there for you. And accessibility is a big part of what we're about. So we stream everything on YouTube for people who can't attend, and the talks are turned around quite quickly afterwards. So if there's any content you've really enjoyed, you can watch it back, usually within a couple of days afterwards. We couldn't do what we do without the support of the local business community. So these are all the companies that give a small amount to us each month, and together that helps fund a lot of the work we do. So if you happen to work for anyone at the moment and you see them up there, please go away and thank you, boss. If you're also working and you don't see your company up there, please go away and ask them to get in touch. And we're always in need of support. So whether you're interested in speaking at an event, or obviously your company might be interested in sponsoring or organising a meetup, just like Dan does, or volunteering to help, then we couldn't do what we do without the support of everyone in the community too. These are our values. I usually let people just read those, but it might be a bit small. So I'll just kind of rattle through them. And the idea is these embody kind of very much every action we take as an organisation. So we like to be impactful, responsive. It's all about making friends, all about taking action if we see an area that needs support, and really amplifying the amazing work that everyone down here is doing. We've got socials there, so Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. You can tell I'm like, I'm in my 40s now. I'm not quite sure what these all are. And an X, Twitter as well. You can join our Slack community. So if you take that QR code, everyone, it's about 3,500 people in there, are in our Slack group. So yeah, you're very welcome to join there. Especially actually if you're looking for work, there's an introduce me section, so you can introduce yourself, let everyone know the kind of work you're looking for, and there's lots of companies in there as well. And yeah, throughout the month of May, we have a partnership with Brighton Fringe. So a number of the meetups, we've got Fringe performers. Not tonight. I know. Gutted. Should have dropped that slide. But if you do go to that QR code and you enter Silicon into the kind of events ticketing bit, you get a discount on any Fringe events. So that's worth looking at. There's some of our upcoming events. So we've got a cloud event happening tomorrow. That's for entry level too, actually, as well. So if any of you are interested in AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, then that's at Runway East, which is down just off London Road. On Thursday, we've got R, which is a data analysis group. That's at the Eagle Lab. Then we've got a couple more next week. Brighton Kotlin, that's kind of Java-based mobile development. And the data forum next Wednesday, also at the Eagle Lab, which is big kind of generic across data, and really well attended. That's really great for networking at. Got a few of these, haven't we? You can also join our meetup page. Also, that's your meetup page. That's the Tech Jumpstart page. I'm pretty sure you'll all be on that already if you're here tonight. I'm not sure if I've jumped into your slides. I have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Just on Silicon Brighton, genuinely, just an absolutely extraordinary organisation. I don't know anything like it anywhere else, that they run all these volunteer-led meetups that are all free to attend, that you guys can just go along to, meet tech professionals, find out about stuff that you didn't know about, learn new stuff every week, and it's all free, all run by volunteers, and actually the generosity of Steve and his company, who fund things like the pizzas and the beers that you're getting tonight, and also this space and all the AV stuff. So we really are really spoilt to have Silicon Brighton in the city, and it's just a massive asset to the city, and fair play, Steve. Thank you for sorting that out. So a little bit about just hold on. Why is that not moving? So I also lead an organization called Tech Native. We, amongst other things, we run a developer bootcamp. So if you are looking to get into software development, we run a bootcamp that's free to join. It's funded by businesses who we work with who want to recruit tech juniors. They sponsor places, we train you up, and then they employ you, is the idea. Got 3 of our guys there, Seb and Nico and Conrad. And you can ask them all about it. So they're in week 10 of 16 at the moment, knackered. It's been full time, full on. But you know, they're more than halfway through becoming really, really good developers. And I'd encourage you to have a look. Have a look at another QR code, but I've also got a printout here for you to have a look at later. And we also do stuff with colleges to help them kind of engage with industry, and local authorities to train up teachers, and all sorts of different stuff to help people get into tech. So yeah, check us out if you get a chance. Just wanted to flag this as well. I am doing a bit of work with the Digital Futures at Work Research Centre. They're linked to Sussex Uni. They're doing a whole bit of research around AI and how it's going to impact on workplace skills. They're looking for creative professionals who work for small to medium-sized enterprises, less than 250 staff in or around Brighton, who work in the digital creative industries and who use AI. So we're looking to interview around 40 people before the end of June. I think we've interviewed about 25, so we still need another 15. So if you would like to sign up and take part in that research, again, I've got some things here some QR codes. So be great to have a couple of you sign up or more if you want to do that as well. Okay, finally. Right, let me grab a. Where am I going to sit? I'll sit here. So my panel: Chris, Kat, Sophie, Cal. Welcome. So how this works, we're going to have a little Q&A, and then we're going to split off into groups, and these guys are going to come around and chat to you. So, but first of all, it'd be great to hear from you guys about what your journey was, into what your role is, and how you got there, and your story in 2 or 3 minutes.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm a senior software engineer at a company called Houseful, but you probably know Zoopla. They own multiple different brands. One of them is Zoopla. I started through a degree, which was about 19 years ago now. So quite at that time, it was a lot cheaper to go to university. Don't know whether I'll do that now and spend all that money. It was a degree called Interactive Media Production, which was very much of its time. At the time, Flash was really big. And when I did that degree, I wanted to become a Flash dev. So I'm glad I didn't pursue that. After that, in my final year, I joined a design agency as the sole software engineer, which was an interesting choice in retrospect, because you don't really have anybody to kind of learn from. So you have to figure it out by yourself, which is good and bad. You figure out how to ship stuff and how to do literally anything related to the internet. But also at the same time, you pick up loads of really bad habits because you're the only one there. So you're like, yeah, I did a great job today, but nobody's reviewing your code. So yeah, that was my first role. And then I moved to London and actually started to focus on writing good quality code. And I was contracting at a company, did a bunch of stuff there, and then I worked at the Telegraph. I don't vote that way. I'm in Brighton, but yeah, that was another really interesting big kind of tech website, lots of millions of visitors. So I managed to kind of work on things like web performance and more niche stuff, which I hadn't really done before, which was really interesting. And then I went to a startup, which was great until they ran out of money. And then I moved to Zoopla, where I am now. So that's kind of my life in tech. Cool.
Hiya, I'm Kat, and I'm a junior data engineer. So it's a bit different to what everyone else here does. But I actually did a software development bootcamp as one of my tech training. So I'm here to, I guess, show that there are other avenues you can go down. You're not completely siloed, and the skills are really transferable, regardless of what discipline you decide to stay in. But so for a bit of my background, I did psychology at uni, so not tech related, but I did get introduced to data. So we did some small scale data cleaning and analysis, which I quite enjoyed. But I didn't end up pursuing that after uni. I started doing management in hospitality, which I did for a bit, and then also realized that wasn't for me either. So I moved home and I started studying trying to decide on a new career path. And I decided on tech. I did a level 2 fundamental programming course, which was all just theory, but just to see if I was interested in the area, which I was. So then I found a bootcamp that I went to, which was run by QA. So it was a government-funded bootcamp. It's an intensive one. It was a 10-week learning. It was a lot, but they covered a lot. They covered the technical skills, theory, interview skills, soft skills. It was really good. And then I currently work for a company called Sparta Global. So they're a tech recruitment company. I think some of you might have heard of them. They take on new people who want to get into tech, especially underrepresented groups, train you up, and then send you off to a client. Or they pair you up, so they put you forward for interviews they've got quite a lot of big clients. And that's where you get the work experience for 6 months to 2 years, depending on the client. So that's where I'm at now.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm a software developer at VetCT, which is, I feel like I always have to explain what it is, but it is a veterinary like radiology and sort of specialist service company. And I also did a boot camp, but before that, I went off to uni 14 years ago and did a music degree basically just played the violin for 4 years. And then came out of that and started working kind of in the music industry, or like broadly in the arts industry, and found myself in the fundraising part of it, which was very not where I wanted to go. But kind of just kept going with that until I reached a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I actually realized that the highlight of my week was when finance would send me a spreadsheet and I would like watch all the columns change with all the like VBAs stuff I'd written. I was like, I should just probably become a programmer. So I did. In lockdown, I taught myself a little bit and then decided to do the Makers Boot Camp, which it was a 16-week full-time intensive boot camp. Very similar to CAT. It kind of taught you software development, but also data and kind of lots of soft skills, things like that. And then shortly after I finished that, I got my job as a junior developer at VetCT. And have been there ever since. So yeah, quite a varied route in, but also quite a classic route in, I think.
Hello, I'm Cal. I am a software engineer at a local agency called A Squared. We do web and mobile and stuff that doesn't have like user-facing role as well. So yeah, I guess something I'll probably talk to people about tonight is how I think engineering is just a tool that you use to like impart some sort of value. So I guess on that thread, I feel like I sort of started engineering from a kid, like tinkering with bikes and toys and cars and whatever. And then I went to uni. I did a mechanical engineering degree. I dropped out in third year because it just didn't feel like the right thing to be doing. And I then, at the time, I was riding a lot of bikes, so I was also interested in bikes. And then I did a bike like frame building course, so building and welding up bikes. And then I went into teaching climbing, and I was teaching climbing for like 3 or 4 years, which I think is relevant because it really sort of taught me about problem solving and visualizations and abstracting how you're going to complete things, which is something that you do as engineers in any field. I did that for 4 years, and I then changed tack again and went back into bikes. So I moved to Brighton, and then I went into basically a design and e-commerce role. So helping to sort of start up and run a bicycle design company. And in that role, I was doing e-commerce management, various photography type of things, and a bit of engineering, product engineering type stuff. But it was the e-commerce side of things that I found really interesting at the time. So we had this like open source Spree based e-commerce site. So there was no like Shopify plugins or shipping things or ways of doing things easily. So I was always talking to the devs, figuring out how to like piece this thing together to work out and like architect an e-commerce website. And then I left to go traveling with my wife. We wanted to just disappear for a while. We intended to go away for 2 years. It ended up being 4 months and we fell pregnant. And then so we had like time and some savings, and I thought I was always interested in web development, so I'll try and learn it, and at least I'd enjoy learning it, and maybe I'd get a career out of it. So I did the Code Academy full stack engineer course, which I think the Tech Native course is sort of based on. It was really intense. I think I was studying that 3 days a week for about 6 months or so, as well as working part-time. And at the end of that, I got my first job, which is the same one I'm doing now.
So what strikes me is how you've all taken yourself like into your roles through not a huge amount of formal kind of experience and learning, and you've kind of found your way. I'm kind of interested to know how you dealt with those early days when you got in there. Did you feel you were competing against people who were like done degrees or like who knew more than you, or how did you kind of manage those early days in sort of like bringing yourself up to speed after completing your learning or your self-learning in your early roles or your first role?
For me, because it was a design agency, it was shipping really, really bad software and then customers going, this doesn't actually work. So I had to figure out the kind of like, there wasn't really any like competition for it. It was more like, at that point, like kind of testing your code wasn't actually that big. People were FTPing their code onto servers. That's not how it's done now. So yeah, I had to kind of like learn the hard way, and yeah, learn how to not break things for people. So there wasn't really much competition at the time. There wasn't like loads of software jobs in Bournemouth, which is where I was. It was a bit more competitive in London, but again, I think it was 2015 when I moved there, and there was loads of jobs. There wasn't enough software engineers to fill the roles, so it's quite easy to wander into jobs. Now I think you're probably a bit harder. I think there's a little more competition. So it would probably be very different now, and these guys will probably have more of a say on that.
So I only knew one person who also worked in tech around the time that I decided to transition. And they took me to a careers fair. So that was like one of the first tech things that I did. I obviously was not qualified even closely qualified to any of the roles. But it was really interesting to just get a feel for what kind of jobs were available. And they even had a company who was looking for, I think, some sort of programming job. It was to do with psychology, some sort of training, some sort of AI model. So it doesn't really matter what your degree is. There are tech jobs. There will be niches where your previous skills cross over with whatever technical training you've done. And I think actually having a niche is probably a good thing because there's less of you. But in terms of me getting my job, I think I was quite lucky. So I did my boot camp and I posted that online. Then I did my last stint of hospitality work just to try and earn back some money after taking so much time off work. And then I actually got contacted by a recruiter on LinkedIn from the company that I work for now. So again, my advice would be is to make the most out of LinkedIn, post the stuff that you're doing, connect and meet people, because I think who you know can often really help when you're trying to find a job, as opposed to just sending off CVs and just being a name on a piece of paper. Actually trying to have a face to your skills.
Yeah, in terms of like kind of the competitive nature of it, I guess when I was applying for jobs anywhere that kind of required a computer science degree, I just instantly kind of knew that wasn't going to be the right place for me anyway, because they were not valuing the kind of soft skills and other things that come with maybe already having a career. So I was just like, well, I don't care. That place is ticked off anyway. So in that sense, that made that kind of an easier thing to get my head around. And even when I started my job, it was really interesting going in. There was a really small team. There was only 3 developers. And the person who'd done a computer science degree wasn't very interested in things like testing. So it was good to bring like that into it. So that kind of initial feeling of I don't know anything was there, but also suddenly realizing, oh, there's things that I've actually learned that I do know that these people don't, because maybe I've learned more recently, I've learned in a different way. Yeah, that was like something that struck me quite a lot when I started. And then, yeah, I would say similar to Kat, I had a blog that I had that would kind of say what I was doing during my boot camp and also anything techie that I was doing afterwards, because I got really into like making stuff with an Arduino. And that's all anyone wanted to talk about in the interviews was the Arduino stuff. So I'd recommend getting some other like weird tech hobby that's not just making apps, because I think people just like to see that you're doing other stuff and your knowledge isn't just like memorizing how to build a server in Express. It's actually ingrained. You actually do understand how to write code.
Yeah, for me, I think it was I kind of got really lucky in that I think I sort of spoke to the right person at the right time, who happened to know someone who was looking for a junior, like myself, I guess. But I suppose the more exposure that that you get to like how things might work as a professional, then I think that can really prepare you in interviews as a junior. So I bumped into someone, a friend of a friend was an engineering manager at ITV. And so they were able to give me some resources that they use for like internal training that they could share very kindly. So I got a bit of exposure to like, enterprise level testing, how that might work. Also, a local friend who runs the agency Buffalo, a guy called Jasper. I'd worked with him a lot in the past, but as a client. And he's just like really generous, and he just gave me a lot of exposure and advice into how I would write code as a professional when I was like shoving my bootcamp stuff at him and saying like, is this any good? And then finally, another friend I met through cycling who knows my agency director, who is the person I say I met at the right time. But I think I never knew that those people would be so helpful and like willing to help when I was looking for a role. And I think when you're going for your first job, I don't even know if my agency director looked at my CV, to be honest. I think he probably knew that I was recommended by someone. And then in a junior role, I think attitude is probably like 80 or 90% of what is going to get you the job. And so that helped massively. And then you'll get a tech test, and then you obviously have to do well in that. But I think the more people you know who might be able to like put a good word in or something, I think that really helped to overcome, I guess, what I felt might have been the biggest challenge. When you haven't got a portfolio, you haven't got any professional experience, and every junior job wants 2 years experience, which is nuts. Yeah.
Thanks. Super interesting hearing you all talk. And, you know, I don't think any of you got lucky in any way. You kind of put yourself in the right position, and interesting to hear, you know, your different journeys and how you had a champion. And we talk about that sometimes in terms of like finding a mentor or having someone who can help you in your early career. You know, you guys made yourself visible, and you had interesting things on your CV. There's all sorts of like different ways in which you got in there, and Chris, you just shipped bad code for until you got better. that's good too. No, really super interesting. I could ask loads of questions, but I want to move to the sort of round table bit. Can I just ask you if you could sum up like your top two or three kind of skills or attributes that have really helped you kind of get into your career and progress in your career? What would they be?
Oh, that's a good one. I think being really useful when you're in a company says quite a lot. Being the person that can actually ship stuff is always good, because you want to be shipping stuff to your customers fundamentally. Quality is super important. Testing, making sure your code doesn't break when somebody else contributes to it. And to be honest, like the soft skills and just being a really nice person to work with. Nobody wants to work with an engineer who thinks they're the best engineer in the world, and actually being really helpful to other people who want to learn and want to ask questions and trying to like improve the kind of culture of the company. That was probably like three things in one point, but yeah, there you go.
So I think for me, I'm going to say more like mindset things and attitudes that you can bring in. So I think the first one is that it took me a while to get around, but I'm still learning, but I feel like I've got there a bit, is being okay with not being good and just getting on with it and accepting that you have to master the basics before you can do anything fancy. I think another one is, I was going to say willingness to learn, but that's kind of similar to the last point. Collaboration's a really big one, being able to explain your code to other people and ask people for advice and learn off other people as well. And the final one, picking three is hard. I mean, was it skills? Was that the question? Key skills?
Or attributes, or mindset, exactly.
Picking a tool and focusing on it, I think, whether it's a language or a particular piece of software that you want to do. It's really easy to get lost in like the world of tech. There's so much to learn, but just pick something that you're interested in and that is fairly widely used, and just focus on that one. So you've got one thing that you're really, really good at, and I think that'll make you really valuable.
Someone once actually said to me, like, you only need one thing to be a good software developer. Take it with a pinch of salt or not, but that's curiosity. And I do kind of agree. Like, I think if you, it's so much of it is going out, working things out for yourself, but also like, it's also like understanding in yourself when you need to ask for help. And I think that all kind of comes under the same banner of like curiosity. So I'd say that is definitely my number one. And maybe that's enough, because I think that's so important to be curious.
Yeah, like everything you've said. I think there are two things which I think applies to engineering and design and project management and whatever tech you get into. Like fundamentally being able to solve problems, as in take things apart, figure out a solution, get it wrong, try again, like ultimately get to a good way of offering something valuable. So yeah, problem solving is the number one thing. But then also being user centric, but sort of to the point of being devoted to users, because ultimately we're making things for people. We're trying to solve someone's need. It could be life saving, it could be fanciful, but you're trying to cater for someone. And fundamentally, yeah, being user centric in your mindset at all times, whether that's writing code, which ultimately is going to be read by another person, or whether it's designing a button and it needs to be fully accessible to all users. Yeah, I think being fully user centric in any aspect of your tech career is really key.
Thank you. Brilliant advice, guys. So usually we do like a bit of a Q&A, but we don't do it like that. We're going to split into tables, and that gives you a really good chance to speak to each of these guys. So I was just thinking we haven't actually set up where the tables are going to go. We can use the offices, yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want you to split into 4. Is there enough of you? So 4 groups of 4 or 5? Yeah, fine. Right, so we're going to have 4 tables. So choose your groups, split off into 4. We want one of them to be, we're going to move that table in here. So it's going to be on the live stream. So if you don't mind being on telly, on YouTube, then you can go on the live stream table. If you don't want to be on screen, don't. These guys are then going to have 10 minutes each. Hold on. Yeah, just about. So just under 10 minutes each. They're going to rotate. Now, hold on. I used to run a college, so we've got to have some sort of like questions to answer, to work through. So what I want you to do, I've got like a sheet of poster paper and some pens that are going to go on each table, and you're going to workshop basically together and scribble down answers. So try and split it into 4. You know, you must have done this before at college and stuff. So 4 questions. What roles and opportunities are open to me? Outside of tech, what skills am I bringing to the table and how can they help me? You don't have to write all those words down. How can I stand out in the job market? So cross-transferable skills, CVs, applications, interviews. And how much of this do I need? How much of this do I know? And what do I need to know? So that's about continuous learning, when to ask for help or when to try and find things out yourself. And I put avoiding imposter syndrome because that comes up over and over and over at every tech Jumpstart meetup. So I thought I'd squeeze that in. I hope you get set up. If you guys want to split into 4 and find yourself a room, and then I just need a bit of help moving that table. Go.
has a green light now. Yeah, so yeah, everywhere's going to start using AI, whether they're an AI company or not. So it's really worth like looking into that. And there's also using AI to help you with your job as well, which is something I'm quite bad at doing. But whether it's from like just asking ChatGPT something, or if you're writing tests, you might want to ask ChatGPT to write your tests for you, as long as you like check it and understand what it all means. It can be quite a good way of like speeding things up, but without kind of like relying completely on AI to write your code, or without going down the route of having like something paid for, like GitHub Copilot, which can see your entire code base and infer everything from that, which is really clever. But I've never used that yet. But I know it's probably going to come at some point. But yeah, so I'd say AI is definitely a huge emerging field.
So, speaking of this, so you're talking about using it and also learning it, and then so do you have some pointers? Because I find it's a bit of again, it's something when you're trying to break in the initial stages, it's so overwhelming and confusing.
Yeah, 100%. I would say just kind of be aware of it at this stage, like know that it's going to become more significant and that companies are integrating it into their products. But ultimately, like there's only so much you can ever know at one point, and like your knowledge will grow. And like if you want to be a front-end engineer, a back-end engineer, data engineer, or you don't know, but they're going to be your kind of primary entry points that you probably are going to want to focus on at this stage. Just kind of be aware that it's kind of changing and bubbling away in the background, that AI is kind of, it is emerging. But yeah, you don't need to like train yourself in it, just understand it's there.
Sure.
But yeah, focus on like the classic, like learn how to code, learn how to use React, learn how to, you know, those sorts of things, or whatever area it is that you're interested in going into. Yeah.
Cool. And Issa, you were saying about AWS, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I have few friends who are in coding, some of them DevOps, some of them front end, some full stack. And the theme that I'm hearing a lot is to get some sort of cloud experience skills, because they're sort of an emerging, because a lot of companies are going on to cloud, moving away from the old-fashioned sort of service. And it's definitely a growing industry, but even in the cloud, they use a lot of AI, you know, that's what I've been hearing as well. Is that similar in your company? Are they using a lot more cloud-based AWS or Azure?
Yeah, so we use AWS where I work, so everything is on there. We use S3, which is their storage. Some of our stuff works on Lambdas, which is, instead of having a server that's always running, it's just like kind of like a small server that just spins up when you need it. So it's just completely new way of doing it. That's called serverless. And there's lots of other stuff we do that I don't get very involved in it. I'm not interested in DevOps at all. Like I steer very clear of it. But I mean, ultimately, if you're working in a company, you will be exposed to it, even if you're a front-end engineer, for instance. Like I still have to use AWS because we keep our code in code commit, and I need to get stuff out the S3 buckets sometimes. So yeah, it's very common, and you can, like, if you're curious about that side of it, you can set up a personal AWS account, and I think everything on it is free for the first year, but you need to be careful if you are running servers. You don't want to pay for your EC2 instances. But like, you can have a free account. You can, once you feel quite confident, you can maybe like set up a website, and instead of making a server and hosting that somewhere, you could try out running it on a Lambda. And you know what I'd say, like, if you're really just starting out, this would be quite advanced. But this is like, again, it's good that you can do this for free, and there's lots of like tutorials and stuff. So if you are interested in the DevOps side, you can have AWS free for a year.
And do you have cloud engineers in your start?
Yeah.
Have they got? Is there a team that looks after your data?
Yeah, we've got a site reliability engineer
Mhm.
and a like head of infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
have to touch it.
Yeah.
In fact, they
Just
don't let
ask them
me.
for advice.
All I do is ask
Yeah,
them for
for advice.
permissions because it's like I log on there
Yeah.
and it's just like denied
Yeah.
everything.
Fair enough. Thank you.
How about you two? Have you got any other interests outside of cloud and AI that is coming up in your coding journey?
It's particularly because in my field, same as AI is quite big. So I don't work for a tech company as a tech side, but even they are discussing with an external provider to integrate some sort of AI into our workflow. So yeah, obviously, I argue that's going to be very big.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Not so much from personal experience, but I've got a few friends in the industry, and yeah, they're using AI to write most of their code now. They're working in like cybersecurity, and yeah, so they use like ChatGPT to write a lot of their stuff, and then they obviously go through it, check it, and sometimes they make mistakes, but they can train it to write better code. So yeah, I think especially in that industry, like cybersecurity is obviously big, and it's only going to get bigger as well. So.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be this emerging field, right? Cybersecurity has been around a long while, but
Yeah.
it's still
a field, like
expanding,
in the
right?
way that cloud's a field, and front end, back end, they're all interesting to talk about because there's like they're very like multifaceted fields. Like front end, that's mainly what I do, and I actually really love it because it's so user focused, and it's moved on so far from the days of like writing HTML and your style sheets and things like that, and now it's all using things like React or Angular, which are just it's much closer to like it's JavaScript, so it's very different, and it's great though because you got to think about like the accessibility of it and the user side of it, and that's why I really like it. So it's not an emerging area, but it's an area that's still like probably one of the fastest evolving apart from AI is front end. Like everyone always jokes that it's just like they became a back end engineer because they couldn't be bothered to keep up with front end because it just changes like every week.
The other thing, I mean, this is a long-term technology, and a lot of countries now, especially the US, China, and Russia, especially China and US, quantum computing is going to be, obviously they haven't got the technology yet, but it's going to be sort of revolutionize really things like cybersecurity, things like medicine, and that's really sort of in its early stages yet. But I think even coding, it will completely upend what we know from what I can gather with quantum. I don't know whether you've heard of quantum. Yeah.
I mean, I know about it from watching the 3-body problem, and that's
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, I know University of Sussex have a huge quantum computing center, and I think the computer itself is like a huge. But I think that's also an emerging technology.
Yeah, definitely will. Like the thing, all these things will create the next phase. Like we're now entering like whatever it's like the third phase or whatever of software and computing because of AI, everything's going to change, and then when that happens, everything will change again. But like everything's changed before, so people just adapt, and everything just.
That's our trait, isn't it? Is our adaptability.
Exactly. Okay. Well, I think you stay here and I move.
Okay.
So the cat comes on this one. Yeah, I said these guys do one each, but I think you can freestyle it.
Nice one.
I'm just changing the rules halfway.
Okay.
Whatever feels good.
Should we just go around? We could do one question per person then, right? So we've done the first one. So we'd like to cover this one. If that's cool for you, is how can I stand out in the job market?
Yeah, sure.
Cross-transferable skills, CVs, applications, and interviews.
So what I would say definitely is having personal projects to stand out, to link in your CV. Because so on my software development bootcamp that I did, one of my friends, he got a job pretty quickly afterwards, and it's because after we did our final project, he then extended that and built additional layers on top of it, and that was one of the main selling points. That's what he spoke about most in his interview, I believe. Yeah, being able to like showcase your skills and not like, oh, I can do this, I can do that, but prove that you can do some stuff and think outside of the box, even if the project's not that good, because realistically as a junior, you know, you're quite limited on your skills, but to show that you're willing to try and put yourself out there, even if the code doesn't work that well, just be like, I've tried to do this thing, these are the problems with it, these are the things I want to work on. You can really showcase your analytical and critical skills, which I think are good.
That's a good point, the analytical and critical skills, right? Because there's definitely an element of how good are we at what we're doing, and showcasing, oh, it's got to look like this and the code's got to be a certain level, but then that's only a small part that can actually be polished, I imagine, quite quickly with highly experienced people. If you've got the root beneath you, which is that, you know, like curiosity was spoken about in the round table earlier on as well. So
if you had a project that's quite simple, you could even have, if you post it on GitHub, which is I definitely recommend if it's a coding project, in the README, you could put points for future development to show how you might expand the project, and it shows you're thinking outside the box a little bit. And if you pick something that is relevant to a project that you're interested in, relevant to a topic that you're interested in, it could be anything, could be cooking, could be sports, could be music. I feel like that will really come across when you're talking about it, the passion. And I think that passion is what maybe a lot of people miss in interviews, maybe because they're nervous or they're just talking about technical skills or whatever. But if it's something that really like excites you, that will really come across.
I'm not sure if it's related to this question, but you said you've done a boot camp while you were working as well. You had a job while you were doing your boot camp. How did you, or were you,
no, I did a full-time boot camp.
Oh, you done a, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
It was like a 10-week intensive.
Oh, okay, yeah,
it's
course. Something I couldn't do. That's what I was asking. Yeah,
but I know people who have done them around work as well and got jobs at the end of it.
Yeah, this is a problem I found, because I find myself, how do you stay motivated when you've got your full-time job and you've got family life, and this is, I think this is probably what I would struggle with most, because I already have a really stressful, demanding job currently. So on my days off, I'm just physically and mentally really, really tired to do anything.
Yeah.
So I was just wondering, but you're obviously it's not relevant.
I can still give some advice on it though. I think just trying to do it a little bit and often, trying to get that routine of studying in. So when I was on my boot camp, I would get up 2 hours before, you don't have to do this, but I would get up 2 hours before my course would start. And I'd do some homework, I'd do some extra reading on anything that I wasn't too sure on. And I felt like that really got me ahead of the game. But it's that consistency of doing, even if it's just half an hour or an hour a day of something, like doing some like coding challenges if you want to learn a technical skill. So it's like a website called Leak Code. Those questions can be a bit difficult, but those are designed to prep you for interviews. But if you could go do like a challenge a day, set yourself to do one little coding challenge a day.
What is it? Leak Code?
Leet, L-E-E-T. L-E-E-T. Code. And those are interview questions. They are quite tough.
Is that just Leak Codes?
If you just type that in, it will definitely, that will definitely come up. Little and often. That would do a lot more than just trying to squeeze in, like stressing yourself out that you've not done 5 hours this week. Just something.
So I'm doing a boot camp at the moment, but like an online one with Ekaterina. So yeah, I'm building a portfolio slowly, but I mean it's very basic. Just wondering if there's anything else you would suggest doing.
I think just having a portfolio is enough. It's going to be basic if you're going to be going for junior roles, and they know that, but just showing that you're willing to actually try the stuff, and it's proving that you can actually do some coding. I think that's it. And yeah, maybe that point I made earlier about analytical points for like future development, I think could be useful. But don't worry about it being basic. As long as it's out there and you've shown you can do stuff, you're already above a lot of people who are going to be applying for jobs.
Perhaps one thing I can ask is maybe if you could elaborate about the cross transferable skills as in the question, because for people such as me, like who come from like a very different background, I mean, we are not usually sure what is actually going to be valued in a software development setting and what is not going to be not so much. I mean, or not be relevant.
What's your background?
So I'm so I used to teach actually.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I was in social sciences. So it's quite different, and it's not in a technical subject at all, apart from some very basic statistics. So I'm not 100% sure, what's going to be relevant, what's just not going to be so much relevant.
Well, straight away, I think teaching is a really hard skill, and not a lot of people, I think, can do it. But when you start doing programming stuff, I think one thing that a lot of people struggle with, and I struggle with as well, is being able to tell other people what your code does, not just write the code, being able to get other people involved and writing it in a way that other people will still understand. I think someone touched on that in the panel as well, because coding, especially for in software development, is extremely collaborative because the code base is huge. So you need to be able to work with other people and share what you do. So that, I think, in itself is a transferable skill and something to kind of play up a bit when you're doing your interviews.
Yeah, that does align with a lot of what people have said. Experienced people have said that in these roles, and it was Cal, I think, who said about the attitudes too. Is it really stands out, and that can do. Therefore, bringing in that side of things where you can communicate and you can teach and you can get across what you're doing is going to be a benefit. So something I'm kind of accepting is that we are only going to be of a certain level, right, with our coding. So then how do we get that across? How do we get the additional skills across? I'm kind of struggling with that on paper, right, when I send CVs out, because I'm putting on my coding experience and then I'm leaving off years of other experience because there's only a finite amount on there. And I'm thinking people are so focused right now on, it's like we're seeing junior devs with 2 years experience. And so you're going, oh, well, I'll chuck in a CV, but we'll see what happens, right? So I don't really know how to weight that when it's just on a piece of paper.
Trying to have examples for things. So for example, you just showing up to a networking event shows that you're interested in like making connections with people and speaking to people about difficult topics. With your teaching thing as well, it's being able to break down really complicated things into a more simpler, easier to digest form. So if you go into a role that's more client facing, you can get that across. What's your background?
I was a scuba diving instructor for nearly a decade. And so, yeah, I mean, that's definitely helped with communication and having to speak clearly in stressful situations. So
There's discipline.
Yeah.
And you're a teacher as well. So you're teaching people, which is getting difficult things across. Learning something that's quite difficult. You talk about your learning process, how you learned to scuba dive and how you learned to teach that to people.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
It's quite, you can always pick something out of your previous experience that is kind of relevant. I think people skills is a really big one to kind of try and get across. And if you can, try and get examples for it. For example, if you've supported any kind of community. So like I've started volunteering with Silicon Brighton.
Cool.
To try and help support the sort of local community and kind of meet more people in that sense.
Working under pressure, those kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. Good insight. Thank you, Kat. Great insight. Thank you very much. Social sciences, was that at university?
Yeah.
Cool, man. Wow. Hard work.
Yeah, a couple of years.
Not for you, right? Were you having to do research as well?
Yeah.
What did you prefer?
I prefer research.
Yeah.
Actually, I like
They
took a private sector role, so I actually like the private sector.
Did you?
Clients are easy enough to
Hey, man. They're not so hungover.
Whoa. Ooh. It's like a mic, but with no speakers.
Yeah, scary stuff.
Cool. Any common themes from this stuff so far?
I think it's just being creative with what we have already and really trying to dial into our strengths without getting overwhelmed as to what there is to learn. And so in related to the AI in the cloud, and anything, it's like Sophie was just talking about front end and it's moving so fast, and you're always like, okay, well, I've got to learn this and I've got to learn that. Oh, then I should learn this, and you can go down a whole rabbit warren.
Yeah.
And then start to feel very, very small because what you were really comfortable with, now you're really stuck constantly on new things. So that's one aspect. And then the other aspect is, you know, for example, one here is a social sciences teacher to postgraduate level, right? So how do you sell that? And
yeah, so there's there's a few things, a couple of things that I mentioned. So on the standing out, everyone will have really similar CVs to what you currently have if you go through a bootcamp or you've self-taught. So you'll have, you know, very similar like skills, and you kind of need to think, all right, how do I separate myself from all of these other ones? So I actually asked I wasn't really best placed to answer this because I don't do the CV review. Generally, CV review comes through somebody who's not technical. Like they basically have a list of, sorry, I've got my notepad in here. They have a list of things that they're looking for that would like, I asked them, I said, like, what would you do if you get like, you know, 50 CVs and they're all the same? What would separate somebody from somebody else? I feel like this is like a really grand reveal, but I'm just trying to get my note out. Okay, so yeah, a couple of things that they said that can help. So the giving back, like a lot of the software you use is open source and community built. You don't have to have given back in a technical way, but showing that you're like that kind of that you're interested in giving back. So like could be volunteering, could be other things. That's a transferable skill. It's actually like if you've got one person who's just got the skills and you've got somebody who's got, okay, I volunteer and I help, it kind of, a lot of the tech community is community. Like this is a community event. This is a free community event. React is Meta, but you know, a lot of the stuff you use is built by somebody in their bedroom who doesn't get paid. So the giving back is really important. So if you can have any kind of volunteering stuff, that's really cool. So I always say keep your CV on one page. Mine is, I've been doing this for about 16 years and mine is still on one page. So nobody really cares, but like when your first CV, you'll be like, how do I get it on one page? But as time progresses, you can like just cut out the fluff, get to the point. Tailor your CV to the job posting. So because it's a junior or entry level role, nobody expects you to be super experienced in X language. So all you really need to have done is created a Hello World app in that language, and you can put that on your CV. You don't need to be like super proficient in it. You just need to have knowledge of it. So like I would say if you're applying to a job that you really want and they have this bullet pointed list of skills, I really hate the bullet pointed list of skills, but actually put that on your CV, even if you've done a small amount of it or you've just done a awareness or because it will just help. A lot of it is a checkbox exercise for them. So like match your CV to what they're asking, and the same with the cover letter. So those are a few things which can help separate you. And yeah, if you're doing like, it sounds a bit silly, but if you're doing like front end development, if your CV is in Word, it probably shows that you haven't really quite got that design eye. So like kind of think about what you're applying to. And if you're going for a front end role, probably you should look quite neat. You should have an online portfolio. Like it should like start to look a little bit consistent. It should look quite nice. If you're back end, maybe less important. But yeah, depending on what you're doing, kind of think about how you're coming across. Cool. Anything else on what do we have?
Did those two questions. So we were just touching on this quite a bit actually on the crossover outside of tech. What skills am I bringing to the table and how can they help me?
Cool. Yeah. So personal brand, online presence, I guess it goes back to the last thing I said. Networking is super important. Going to events like this, you're already meeting people. And when you meet people, just try to be like, nice and friendly and be somebody that you've all worked in places where there's somebody who you'd love to work with for the future and somebody you probably wouldn't want to work with. Be the person that you would like to work with. And when you leave, even if you have a bad experience at that company, just don't burn bridges. Just, be the person who's really nice and pleasant to work with. My last two jobs I've found through people that I know. One of them was given to me. I didn't even have to interview for it. And the second one was somebody I'd worked with and they had a great, we kind of got on quite well. And I still had to go through the formal interview process, but that job posting wasn't even really posted. Like you can be made aware of things that aren't even necessarily super like visible. So I think making friends and getting on with people and being really like friendly and personable actually goes a long way, and that's on the kind of soft skill networking thing. So I wouldn't underestimate that. What else do we have?
So I think with the last question, how much of this do I know and what do I need to know? A bit confused by that question.
So yeah, always be honest. Like if you don't know something, ask for help. Or if you're I guess in a entry level or junior role, you would need more help than others, but showing like being able to self-learn, because you've probably been doing that to some degree to this point anyway, is great. Like as in like think kind of like ask for help when you need it, but also if you can go off and you're like, I'm going to give it my best shot. And when you're coming to somebody, you're saying, hey, I looked at this, but I'm still not clear on it. Do you think you could help me? Is better than, I don't know that. Can you help me? So like kind of the self-learning throughout your career is really important to just progress and keep on top of things. But don't be afraid to ask for help. And people will expect, especially in those entry-level roles, that they'll be need to give a lot of help, but also try and be really useful and try and like do your own, you're intelligent people. You can, there's the internet, there's Stack Overflow, there's like loads of resources. So it's not, in a lot of cases, you can probably find answers yourself. And imposter syndrome, it just, yeah, I mean, it's difficult to answer that one. Like it's, when I changed into my current job, I didn't know 80%. I came in as a senior and I didn't know 80% of the stack. So you can imagine that didn't feel particularly great when I first came into it. But you, again, like a lot of these technologies, it feels overwhelming because there's so many of them, but some of them are so similar. And if you understand the underlying language, you can just hop between them and it doesn't really, it's not too tricky. So sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming due to the quantity of stuff, but don't get too hung up on that. Everybody's in the same place. Nobody knows absolutely everything. You can try and figure it out yourself, and you can ask for people if you need help.
So of the junior developers that you've worked with in your time,
yeah,
when you think of them, what comes to mind are the ones that have stood out?
I think like passion for what they're doing. So we had like, I think there was one company I worked at, we had a similar like makers academy. It was like they'd gone through a boot camp and we had to select one based on like their code test and their CV and their interview. And the person that we picked she seemed really passionate about it and she seemed really interested in it. Like it was literally came down to that, because they're all going to write the test in a very similar way. It's so difficult to differentiate, but like that kind of showing keenness and like genuine interest, it's difficult to kind of fake. So when you get somebody who is like, okay, I'm really interested in this, and they've demonstrated a lot of these skills, you're far ahead of somebody who is not.
What about the junior developers that have stood out in the wrong way?
I think if you rock up and you think I haven't had much of this, but if you turn up and you think you know everything, it's like, well, there's the right way of doing things, which is the way that you learn. But the reality of making software is that when you go to a company, it's not going to be perfect. Like they may not have tests for X piece of code, and some juniors may be outraged. It's like, that's not how you do it. It's like, well, you don't know the history of this. You don't know how it's got to this point. It could have been handed through 5 software teams before it's got to this point. So I think if you rock up and you think you know best, and you're always questioning, like, always question why, but kind of judging why something is in a particular way. There's a lot of legacy systems, and it costs money to improve those legacy systems. You've got to be realistic with like the code bases you're working with. So like kind of coming in without too much judgment, but also realizing when things aren't great. And you can even offer ways to improve it. Like you could even say, okay, cool. You could even say like, what about this? And they might say that's not realistic right now. Okay, fine. But actually, you can improve it. And sometimes it's good to sometimes you can just go and improve it. Like you're like, this is a small thing. Go fix a small bug. Go do a thing that's annoying people, and they'll be like, oh, cool, that's fixed now. I don't need to worry about it.
It's kind of like it relates to, when you're self-learning or under guidance and instruction, they create this laboratory perfect conditions.
Yeah, exactly.
You can do your code in, and then you go out into the real world.
That's not how it is. Yeah,
it's like your driving test and how you're supposed to drive perfectly, but then you've got some guy next to you, he's got a cig in his mouth, just like that. And you're going, hang on a minute, why am I
Pretty
having
much.
to do this?
Pretty much.
Quite
Yeah.
the same, but you know, it's just like you do what you do to get things working, right? And I think something that actually something really useful someone put to me is the business needs, you know, because you think, oh well, why don't we just like my mate's working for somebody and he's using some old React classes and doesn't use hooks. And at first, well, why don't you just do it onto hooks? Everyone's using hooks. He goes, because it would, like, we wouldn't get anything done other than just converting that, right?
Yeah.
And it's going to cost thousands to do that.
I mean, it's good to like head in that direction. If you're like, this should be, you know, somebody's like, we've just left it at Node version 8, and you're on like Node 21. You're like, kind of some security vulnerabilities here we should probably address. So there's always like getting the right direction, but also realizing that you can't do it immediately is good.
Not balance.
Cool.
Very cool, Chris.
All good?
One last one.
Yep.
Very nice.
If you swap with Cal.
Where are you at with your coding? What are you up to now?
Mostly use R. I only reason I use any sort of coding is because they teach you some statistics in grad school, and that's in R. So, but I don't know anything about software engineering.
Okay, but you're interested, right?
Yeah, so I know some coding, but I don't know anything about algorithms.
Sure.
You look very different with your hair. Was that when you had lots of hair in the pictures? I was like, is that the same guy?
I've been learning for a while.
Lost it.
Doing front end stuff mainly. About a year and a half now. Yeah. So I know everything. What? Yeah, great, Cal. Thank you. How about you? Sweet, brother. Yeah, we kind of gone all around the houses actually on all these questions, and we've talked about AI, the cloud, cybersecurity is expanding. So just thinking about, you know, where can we be a little bit different, I think is something that's really important. And then standing out, there's been some great information on doing personal projects, proving your attributes, and then also being able to showcase them. And then building up this, how to build our CV effectively as well was covered. And then lastly, it was talking about, you know, some of the traits of being a junior developer and what's expected. I think a lot of it is what I'm seeing, at least, is what understanding what the expectations of who we are versus, because we don't really have a barometer, right? Until you've worked, you don't really understand what level you're at or who else, you know, what's your skill set like compared to others. So then it's knowing, okay, well, I can present this aspect of me as a strong developer, as opposed to, oh gosh, I feel like I don't know anything, and I don't know, is anyone actually going to pay attention to me? So in all of that, I think it's just, you know, the big thing is standing out. I think that's the overall thing, is we're in a market that is changing in terms of its saturation, but there are definitely jobs out there to be had. So how can we be that person that is the one that gets them?
So, is it on? Yeah. So I think as a junior, like, there isn't a lot expected of you, to be honest. They're not expecting like the next hot stuff to come and do something. I think as a junior, you need to fundamentally have a really good attitude to learn and be able to demonstrate that, whether that's in, you probably won't have a portfolio, so it's going to be maybe a recommendation by someone else, or it will be how you do in your interview. But be really keen, like show a bit of resilience, have a good attitude to learn, but also show that you know what it's like to work on a team and that you're a team player. And that can be quite hard because you might not have had a job where you've been on a team. But it's so important, and especially as a junior, because you're going to be coming in, you're going to have to be like, you're going to probably be asking for help. You're probably going to be not slowing other people down, but you still need to be like a good person to work with and to learn from, and to be able to learn quickly with other people. But then as a junior, you might be a junior from an engineering or design sort of point of view, but you might be a senior in like every other thing that you've done. And if you're a good team member, then that means that you can advise in ways that you're not a junior. And so if you can show everything you bring to the table, aside from your tech test, which probably doesn't matter that much unless it's like a FANG type company. Yeah, I think, I don't know. Do you need to stand out? I don't know. I think you need to just show the key things, which are that you can work well on a team and that you've got a really good attitude, that you're nice, that you're friendly, and that you can, you're willing to sort of like fit the shape of that company that you're moving into. Because people are going to be taking like a view that you might be there for a while and that you're going to grow into the person that they want. I think that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Nice. So then it's might say even just standing out in areas other than the code that we're writing, right? So there is going to be a limitation to how far you can take yourself without experience, unless you do it for like 40 years, and so then really selling that other aspect and then getting people to know, right? So
so if you take a senior engineer at a company, senior software engineer, they will have, I don't know, 4 or 5 years of experience writing code, but they've also got 4 or 5 years of understanding business problems, understanding like user problems, being able to interpret designs and then work with PMs and designers. But you might have done all of that stuff in a previous job, you just haven't done the engineering. So moving into that role, you might not be as far off a senior as you think you are, because you may have all those other things, and you can't discount your previous experiences, because they help you make the right decisions massively, and they allow you to support other members of your team, talk to your clients. So everything that you bring to the table matters.
Yeah,
sure.
That's a good way to put it, actually. Yeah. Any thoughts on this? Anyone on the table? I think the thing that I'm thinking about with the standing out, Brighton's, it's appearing phenomenal for networking in terms of how much it does, and how many opportunities there are to come out and meet people face to face. But then, something I've been trying is a method from a guy that I connected with on LinkedIn, who is an ex-recruiter as well as an ex-developer, and he talks about you have to become your own recruiter. So it's involved a lot of cold outreach emails and getting used to just sending out and never get anything back, creating a little video of what you do, just because that's often the first conversation between you and the company is, can you hold a conversation? Are you going to come across like we want to work with you? And if you can put a short video, just a 1 minute intro, then that does that. So I think, the challenge that I'm thinking about is, we have this one piece of paper that we're sending out, and it's potentially amongst a lot of different other developers. And if we're going for those junior roles, could it be that it'd be better to put maybe a really short a 50-50 split, right, with coding and then soft skills and what you can bring to the team, your attitude, maybe, like you said, tailoring it to the company.
Yeah, I think as a junior, you probably won't have a portfolio. Yeah. That's kind of fine, to be honest. I think, yeah, if you can really communicate how you are as a person, how quickly you can learn, that's definitely, I think, is precedent over the rest of it, because you'll probably have a tech test, and then at that point you can show, that you can pass a tech test. I think also, yeah, you need that resilience, and that you will not hear from people, and you will get like rejected for things, often without reasons. But then you might apply to that same company 6 months later or a year later, and someone at that company is going to be like, oh, I recognize that person. And that makes a really big difference. You might have to apply like 3 times. But that's a good thing. If you really want to work somewhere and you apply like 2-3 times, that's only going to help. So yeah, I think, does that answer the question a bit? I think you also need to you do need to be aware of the cultural fit. So like the way you apply to a company isn't going to be the same for every single one. some might want like an in-person. They might want you to go in.
Mm.
Some people can't accept that sort of interview. You know, it might be that you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, like the right, you know, like someone that works in that company. Yeah, do be aware of taking the time to apply to wherever you apply in the way that suits that company.
Yeah.
For sure. It's very easy to see like a copy and pasted application.
Sure.
But yeah, as a junior, it's definitely more about showing your personal character than the tech stuff, because like, you know, you can learn on the job.
Yeah.
If you can pass the tech test, then you know enough, and then you can learn the rest on the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. So then, I guess with the tailoring, if you're trying to get a high volume out, it's that balance. Some good tip I found was someone told me was to kind of have buckets of different companies. So, for example, you're a design agency, and they'll have a slightly different approach, and then perhaps even just, you know, you could kind of quickly look over each website for the company, and then just tweak a bit of the language. You know, it's that balance of volume, but then quality and quantity. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably put more time into finding the right companies to apply for. Yeah, I think I guess if you're applying to like many different companies, your chances of succeeding in all of them varies massively. There are some that fundamentally look for different types of people. So I think, you know, like I find when I was looking for jobs, it's really tiring.
Yeah.
Like it's hard. It uses a lot of energy.
Sure.
It takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, like find the time and do the research to apply to the places where you can do like a really damn good application for.
Okay.
And then do it that way, because I think it shows, rather than like casting your net very wide, spending a lot of time doing each one, and then not really selling yourself in every single one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's probably the way I'd do it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Because yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard, and you have to put yourself down on a single piece of paper or a single email.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you need to do the best job you can of that
Sure.
one, and then maybe that means applying for fewer and doing like the best you can.
Higher quality, like more high probability, and like you said, it's almost there's a great saying of what you want wants you, and so if you're finding companies that fit your ethos a bit more and your values, then they're much more likely to want to bring you on anyway, because you've still got to get through the interview process, right? Once you've got past that piece of paper. So if you're not the right personality for the company,
Yeah, but you might not be then, but you might be in a year's time,
True.
and they'll remember that when
Yeah.
you've got a job, when you then apply, when you're a bit more, you know, you're a mid or a senior, and you can say, I've applied before. You know, maybe they replied and said you're not the right fit now. But yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
there was some really interesting stuff going on there. Some real great nuggets of kind of advice and information. What I usually do, we've only got a couple minutes left, just ask for your like key takeaways. What kind of like, out of all of the conversations you had, what's your kind of key takeaway, the best bit of advice that you spoke about, the conversation that struck you most?
I think one thing that came up a lot is, I was saying, to networks, people were saying like how to get a job. I think meeting people, going out to networking events and showing that you're contributing to part of the community, that you're actively engaging with people, because that I think is a really good show of your social skills, which can be really hard to relay in a CV or something. But like, go out to events, post pictures, say something that you enjoyed or like an interesting conversation that you had, and those people could help you get a job later, which has been touched on before, but I think it's a really important point to take home.
Cool. Difficult to pick one. Yeah, I would say just probably the point around being nice to work with. So just be a nice person. And that goes for literally any career. There's people that you've worked with who you've been like, I probably don't want to work with them again. There's people you've been like, I'd love to work with them again. Be the person you'd love to work with again.
I think the thing that came up quite a lot was with that fourth question of kind of to avoid getting really, really overwhelmed, especially when you're starting out, is just like knowing when to, okay, you've acknowledged that this thing exists, but you don't need it right now. So just knowing that it's something that you can like refer to in the future, but not fussing with like really, really deeply understanding what that thing means, and just keep focusing on what you're learning at the moment. Just know it's there if you need it, and hopefully that'll help you not get too overwhelmed, because there is a lot to know.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up is that as a junior, you haven't got a lot to show in terms of your professional work. So I'd say that you really can't discount all of the experiences you've had leading up to that point, because they all shape you as your future engineer, your future designer, whatever it is. But they're all super valuable, and they'll contribute to making you great at whatever you're doing. And the more you can bring that to the table and sell that, as the person you are, that'll help you get a start.
Thanks, everyone. So thank you to Kat, Chris, Sophie, and Cal. But round of applause for the guests. Thank you, guys. And a huge thank you to Steve and Silicon Brighton as well. Thank you for providing all the food and the space and the AV. And to Cameron as well for doing all the AV and the camera work. Thank you, mate. So yeah, you guys have been doing all the right things. You've been coming to a meetup, meeting people, meeting some professionals. You've got a bit of time to network and talk to each other, take each other's numbers, LinkedIn and all that kind of stuff. I'd encourage you to look up the next meetup in the next week. Go to Async, go to JavaScript meetup. There's so many that you go to, Brighton Cloud, the endless, where you'll make a new contact, and it could help you get your next job or your first job. So thank you to everyone for coming. The next Tech Jumpstart will be, I think, in September now. I think there's a bit of a gap. So look out on the group and we'll post out about when that is. If you're interested in tech native, there's a QR code there. Register and you'll be on our mailing list for the next bootcamp or whatever other stuff we've got going on. So yeah, I'd encourage you to do that as well. And yeah, thank you everyone. Give yourself a round of applause. It's been great audience. Thank you everyone.